Reviewing RuPaul's Drag Race US Season 1 got double-digit views, but I live in a dump in Florida, so I have nothing else to do but play Spot the Crackhead in a Publix parking lot. So I'm reviewing RuPaul's Drag Race US Season 2. Here's the Drag Race Wiki's raw data. Yes, the formatting is as hideous as Marilyn Monroe's liver. And here's the spreadsheet I've made based on maximum minimum competitors defeated. Note that the data in Episode 4 is different for everyone who wasn't higher or winner. This episode is dedicated to the recently deceased Dr. Lynn Conway. She was an icon of computer engineering and an icon of the trans community. If I didn't know RuPaul is black, I'd swear episode 1 was conceived by a white supremacist. Gone with the Wind is a movie which basically glamorizes the South before and during the Civil War. And RuPaul knows this, because he even uses the line, "Those damn Yankees took everything from you!" Episode 1 was a standard design challenge created for the sake of a pun. Predictably, a censored queen, who has a history of questionable fashion choices, was eliminated with a Minimax of 0. Sahara Davenport, rest in power, defeated the cancelled queef with a Minimax of 1. Morgan, the only Scottish queen who they could afford at the time because Annie Lennox was too famous and expensive to be a guest judge, won the episode with an 11 max and min. Once again, that is a 11 max and min because there were 12 competitors. Tyra was high with a max of 10 and a minimum of 9. Pandora, shockingly, was actually judged reasonably and got the same score as Tyra. Everyone else had a max of 8 and a minimum of 3. Episode 2 wouldn't be made today. In today's environment where drag queens are constantly being accused of targeting and sexualizing children, all while the straights are taking little kids to Hooters to feed them mediocre chicken wings, having queens work in a strip club would be a PR disaster. It would also never be made today because it would involve Dita Von Teese being relevant. And to be clear, this state of the world isn't okay. Pole dancing doesn't need to be sexual, even though it was invented by strippers. And even if it had to be sexual, I'd be happier if a performer emulated sex work than have the queens do some of the truly trashy things they've been forced to do later on in the series, such as in Season 3 when they had to make military propaganda crap. Basically, I'd rather have the queens work on a pole than advocate an international terrorist organization which has a higher sexual assault rate than most countries. I miss this era of Drag Race, when a cherry pie gift certificate was the most famous pie disaster of the franchise. Sahara, naturally given her dance background, won this episode with a min and max of 10. Jessica, Tyra, Jujubee, and Mystique were all on the winning team but didn't win, with maxes of 9 and a minimum of 5. Tatiana, Pandora, and Morgan beat the bottom 3 but were still on the losing team. Their mins are 3 and their maxes are 5. Kylie Sonique Love, with her Silver the Hedgehog hair at the time, escaped the most fairly chosen of bottom 2 of all time, with it having been chosen by the amount of money earned. Raven took out Nicole Paige Brooks from Atlanta, Georgia. I love how we all say this as if Atlanta was something other than urban sprawl, grifters, and an airport. Before we go over episode 3, I think it's important to talk about the historical context of the history of reality television and economics in the United States. Cable TV found its stride in the 80s, resulting in the existence of specialty networks like MTV and the proliferation of the bloated carcass that is ESPN. The 90s brought constantly cheaper equipment, which meant that it was easier to launch more channels, which meant that existing networks would launch spin-offs like MTV2, CMT, and ESPN2. But it also meant, in all cases, partially cannibalizing existing viewer bases. Then we had the economic stagnation of the 90s with downsizing, wage stagnation, and outsourcing. As a result, we had less viewers per network, less disposable income per viewer, and costs such as syndication being the same. There was a need for cheaper television. There were 2 main approaches from this. Channels which launched mostly airing reruns of archive shows, such as early Cartoon Network and TV Land. The other was a new concept known as reality television. Reality TV, even at the time, was viewed as a trashy display of a bunch of self-absorbed people fighting for airtime. But the conditions that allowed it to thrive kept growing for years. This included an actor strike in 2000 that accelerated the growth. Reality TV's spewing of obnoxious prole feed media was out of control. Then, in 2007, a writer strike happened, and reality TV got another wave of growth. This kick-started a new genre of reality shows that had deliberate camp and roasted the genre because no one could take the genre seriously anymore. Comedy Central's Drawn Together and Stan Lee's Who Wants to Be a Superhero predate this 2007 strike, but they also launched the genre. But the strike caused the microgenre to grow. Two mainstream shows were born out of the public resentment of reality TV. Total Drama Island, which was a massive genre parody, and RuPaul's Drag Race, which at its debut season specifically parodied America's Next Top Model and Project Runway. I should note that both shows have evolved into what they were mocking, with Total Drama Island having an inevitable baby spin-off and an unwanted musical, and with Drag Race basically making the seasons by the numbers at this point with obvious production meddling. But RuPaul's Drag Race took a few years to do that. Instead, just as Season 1 roasted Top Model and Project Runway, production decided to roast the rest of the TV world, and they kept doing this for basically 2 seasons. Episode 3 was the start of this, by roasting the only thing in American television more blatantly manipulative than reality TV, the advertising. Mystique was eliminated with a min and max of 0 in this episode. On one hand, I get what Mystique was trying to show. Not everyone in the South is an absolute embarrassment. The South may show the foulest parts of American society more blatantly than everywhere else, but those flaws, like the ignorance and classism, are everywhere, and not everyone in the South is like that. On the other hand, this show is for America's Next Drag superstar, not America's Next Drag woman in stained pants buying Cheerios and wine at Walmart. Drag isn't just presentation of gender. Drag is gender made better. Oh well. Raven took Mystique out with a min and max of 1. Pandora and Jessica were high with mins and maxes of 7 and 8. Tyra won due to what I think was production meddling with a min and max of 9, and everyone else had a max of 6 and a minimum of 2. While Episode 3 roasted ads, Episode 4 roasted silly filler game shows like Match Game and Deal or No Deal. Weirdly, this started the trend of Drag Race being a cultural powerhouse, because Snatch Game managed to get enough interest in Match Game to get it revived in 2016. Episode 4 also creates a scoring problem. Tyra got immunity in the previous episode and needed it in this episode due to her bombing Snatch Game, so Episode 4's data is messier than Tyra's career. We'll start with the simple stuff. Tatiana's portrayal of Brittany was a little tacky, but it didn't have a head-shaving incident. Also, some of it was just funny no matter who would have made the joke, like the "I got lost" to the disco stick question, but she won and got a min and max of 8. Pandora's Carol Channing was high and got a min and max of 7 raspberries. Sonique launched the Curse of Lady Gaga with a minimum of 0. However, Tyra's immunity, which may have been a production gift, kept her safe, so Tyra might have been worse but been saved, so Sonique has a maximum of 1. Similarly, Morgan has a max of 2 and a minimum of 1. Tyra, being a messy wildcard, has a max of 6 and a minimum of 0. Everyone else has a max of 6 and a minimum of 3. You'd think that with the Gaga and Beyonce curses being as old as Snatch Game itself, these characters would have stopped in the single-digit era. Episode 5 mocked annoying heteronormative wedding shows like Say Yes to the Dress and Engaged and Underaged. Speaking of which, let's look at how hot Morgan was in this. Also, let's talk about how marriage equality at the time was basically an issue for the middle-class gays because the rest of us had higher priorities, and how this meant that the achievement of marriage equality was only a victory on paper because the middle class is now extinct. Morgan was robbed and eliminated with a minimum and maximum of 0. Sahara's concept wasn't understood by the judges and she got a min and max of 1. Tatiana escaped the bottom 2 with a min and max of 2. Tyra won with a minimum and maximum of 7. She should send Tatiana some of her prize money for that because she won because of Tatiana's line, "I don't think you're seeing that Tyra's a complete bitch." Everyone else had a max of 6 and a minimum of 4. Episode 6, Rocker Chicks, was the parody of the live music show. That poor audience had to listen to Ladyboy karaoke performances 7 times in a row. I've done this same thing to someone as a torture experiment and caused permanent psychological damage. Whoops. Also, the Boulets made their guest judges watch 10 performances of Shoes in a row 11 years later, and that season was literally set in hell. I want to know what was going on in the producer's meeting room. Jessica Wilde won with a min and max of 6. Sahara was sadly eliminated with a minimum and maximum of 0. She was eliminated by Juju, who had a min of 1, a max of 1, and a blood alcohol content of 100. Tyra stayed out of the bottom 2 with a min and max of 2. Tatiana was safe with a min and max of 3. Pandora and Raven shared a min of 4 and a max of 5. Episode 7 was less of a parody of a show type and more of a parody of a TV phenomenon. Tacky product placement and blatantly pimping a new book or album that will be shown on Good Morning America and then 5 years later will be shown on the shelves of Goodwill. Jessica was eliminated with a min and max of 0 despite having the only memorable drink endorsement and the only memorable book title, with I Love This Drink, and Dreams of a Golden Child slash Shower. Tatiana had a Minimax of 1. Pandora was in the bottom 3 but not the bottom 2 with a Minimax of 2. Raven won for some reason with a Minimax of 5. And they used a Sister Sledge song that isn't We Are Family as the lip sync song. Did they really have to do Jessica dirty like that? Episode 8 is where the dirty treatment of the queens is supposed to happen, because it's the makeover episode. Pandora went home with a Minimax of 0, Juju bottomed again and got a Minimax of 1, Raven won with a Minimax of 4, and Tyra and Tatiana had mins and maxes of 2 and 3. Episode 9 continues the TV mockery theme by having an unnecessary TV award show. Everyone had a max score equal to their min score. Tatiana got 0, Jujubee 1, Raven 2, and Tyra 3. Episode 10 was edited. Episode 11, the finale, was an OSHA violation. Jujubee could have sued the show over her nearly being blinded partially, but instead, she seemingly got a contractual agreement to agree on any All-Star season she wanted. After inflation, that contract might actually be worth more, but from what we saw, if the show decided to crown Raven due to Tyra assaulting a competitor, it would have been justified. Also, if Raven had been crowned, the next season wouldn't have had at least 3 different assault incidents. Episode 12 confirmed what everyone but the top 2 knew. The top 2 was the villains of the season battling for the crown. If you enjoyed this episode, then like, comment, share, Nuremberg every single fossil fuel executive. Subscribe, ring the bell.